Tim Minchin has become one of the biggest names in comedy, both here and on international circuits, and this week sees the release of Rock and Roll Nerd, documenting his rise from obscurity. It's directed by Rhian Skirving, who is literally there from before anything happens to him. So it sort of starts off with this guy very sort of, being the struggling bohemian in Melbourne with his poor friends, having to sort of, hope to God this guy actually makes it. And then, of course, as we all know the ending, he does. I spoke to Rhian Skirving earlier today, and she had this to say about her film. So how did this documentary come about? How do you decide to do a documentary on Tim Minchin, and how is that connection made?
Sure. Well, I've been friends with Tim for a long time, in fact, right back to kind of late high school, university days. And so I'd always been very aware of his talent. I've witnessed him writing music at parties and performing in theatre productions, and it was always very obvious that this guy had really some very special talent. And then we hooked up again later when we moved to Melbourne, and we lived very close to each other, and I would see him most days and see him struggling trying to get his performances out there to a level of public that would finally recognise him. And I just thought that he was interesting talent, and that he was going through a really interesting period in his life where he was having to make some big decisions. So I decided to just start filming, and it went from there.
Excellent. So it really is the product of a sort of honest, believing friend in a way.
Yeah, well, I had always had faith that he would make it, although we were all getting a little bit nervous because he'd been trying for quite a few years, and we'd go and watch him perform in his little cabaret venue, and sometimes there'd only be a handful of us there watching. And what he did was always amazing, and everyone loved it, but we could never get anyone to come and see him. Any real people, any industry folk, or journalists or managers to come and take an interest. So we were kind of worried about how is this going to happen? How is he going to break through? So it wasn't all, we weren't 100% sure that it would take off, but I had a hunch that something was going to change for him.
Well, I mean, that to me was, I guess, watching it is why I found the film so sort of, almost moving. For any sort of struggling wannabe, anything out there, I think it's really easy to relate to that anxiety that he goes through in the film. I certainly did. I've watched my stuff for years and years, and many of us have. So, that's what surprised me. For me personally, I wasn't even particularly a huge fan of Tim's. So I was sort of a bit worried and thinking, how is this going to go? But because of that, I really connected to the movie, and actually by the end, quite like his stuff now. So it definitely did its trick on me.
But all he's ever wanted to be is a rock star on Rage or MTV. But he knows that it's not fucking likely. He just turned 30. He knows that he will always be a rock and roll nerd. He'll keep writing songs the world will never hear. And though they won't be heard, he'll just keep writing.
One of the interesting things is that towards the end, of course, he's sort of one of these very complex characters where, he sort of gets what he wants, I suppose, in the end, what he's been yearning for all this time, and it doesn't quite turn out the way he would wanted it to, or there's still something almost missing at the end. You get the feeling of that. Is that? How much time has passed? I was wondering, the end of the film to now. When the film ends, how long ago was that, say?
Yeah, well, the actual ending was almost 2 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. So things have changed for him, and I think he is starting to become a little bit more comfortable with his level of success.
Yeah.
He's still. I think the thing that Tim struggled with at the end of the film, for those who haven't seen it, is that you are in control of your work when it's only you desperately trying to put it out there, and it's basically because there's no one there to help you. So you have great ownership of that, and then as soon as you do start to get a level of success, there's a lot of people that come along to assist you, which is fantastic on the one hand, but you can also feel a little bit like you're losing grip of every decision, and I think that's what Tim was struggling with at the end there.
And so for you personally, personally, as a filmmaker, I mean, I guess the interesting thing is when documentarians choose as their subject other performers, the dialogue can all sort of be focused around that performer rather than the fact that, this is a documentary made by somebody who isn't Tim Minchin, I suppose. What do you think was the connection for you? I mean, beyond just obviously he was a friend of yours, but what did you actually personally get out of the story of Tim and watching that and filming that?
Well, I think it's a story that, doesn't necessarily. You don't have to be a performer to appreciate it.
Yeah.
As you said, we all have our passions and our dreams and things that we would like to achieve, and we all struggle throughout our lives, I think, to get them to pursue them. And I found it inspiring watching Tim's journey, because no matter how close you come to giving up on something, and we all come to those moments, there is always a chance that tomorrow something is going to change, and someone's going to notice you, and anything could happen. And I think a lot of young people have responded to that. Well, in fact, older people too, but people have responded to the hope that his story offers.
The older people are too jaded.
Perhaps, but I think he is an inspiration in that he is dedicated and hardworking and didn't just rely on luck. It was a combination of all those factors for him. You can't just rely on luck, but luck often does play a big part.
Well, I wake up in the morning at 11:47 and I can't believe I have to face the horror of another fucking day.
You can't put it past him, the guy. The guy just keeps batting when many others would give up, I think. I agree with you. I found that quite inspirational, and that's why personally I'm recommending everyone to go see this film. It is a really wonderful documentary.
Thanks.
Especially after we spent 2 weeks here, dealing with that awful bloody Baz Luhrmann film. And so to find something that's small and low budget and Australian and wonderful is good. So I'm just so happy to be able to tell my listeners to go see an Australian movie.
It is interesting that that's opening at the same time. Actually, with this film was funded by me, really on my holiday savings, and shot on a tiny little camera. And it is interesting to compare.
It's real, goddamn.
At the end of the day, it's all about story, and obviously you like things to look pretty and sound nice, but people just want to be told a good story, and I think that's what perhaps this film can offer.